Earlier we saw how Quick Mask can help us see what we're doing, and then we also talked about some techniques for fine-tuning your selection. Well, here's one extra command that can be extremely useful. So I'm going to start once again with the Quick Selection tool and just get what I get. Now I could again press Q for Quick Mask, and that gives me a good overall look. But if I want to refine it even further, this button up here opens a separate dialog box with plenty of options. And this is what you can do. Notice, by the way, when I roll over anything, the little description will tell me what these options do. So here's my original selection, or called standard. I can view it in Quick Mask. So if you like Quick Mask, view. But here's the difference now. It gives us extra options for adjusting it, as we'll see in a second. We can view it on a black background, on a white background, or actually look at the mask itself. Personally, depending on what I'm doing, I usually pick one of the ones like black. If I know, for example, that if I turn this preview off for a second, she was on a blue sky, so if there are any bits of blue, it'll probably show up better on black, or I might go with a Quick Mask view. But let's go with black in this case, and here's what it lets us do. It's not going to fix if we notice a glaring mistake where we missed a whole bit. That you still need to fix normally. But what this does let us do is if it looks really close, I'm seeing just a hair of blue here and there, I could, for example, contract the selection a little bit. And you'll see, as I do, watch those areas up there where we're seeing little shades of blue, now it's gone. We can also decide to feather it more to make a much softer edge. And these work in combination, so if I have nothing done in terms of contracting or expanding, then I'm making a more soft, feathered, glowing type selection. If you feel that your selection is looking a little jagged, you can use the smooth command or the smooth slider to move it out, but then sometimes when you do that you'll get a bit too much, so that's where the radius can also help. If the edges look a little soft, then you can increase the contrast to crisp them up a little bit in conjunction with things like radius. So they all kind of work together. Generally what I would probably be more apt to do is to contract a little bit to make sure I'm not seeing any obvious areas. Notice like right here at the end of her lips, that's an example of something I still need to fix traditionally. So I would click OK and then go into something like Quick Mask or even just the regular selection and use my lasso tool, for example, to just take away a little tiny piece there, things of that nature. But this refine edge command is a really interesting one because before this was introduced in CS3, if I just undo refine edge, what I had to do previously was go to the select menu and choose commands like smooth or expand or contract, but the problem was here was the option. It was a dialog box and you'd put in a number and click OK and see what it did. So it really wasn't very interactive. This is so much better because you can see a live preview of anything you do. If you increase the contrast or increase the radius, you can start to see. And what I would suggest when you're trying to learn this is do exactly this. Make what you think is a pretty good selection, change to one of the contrasting backgrounds with either black or white so you can really see it, and then just try the sliders and push them really far and start to pull back, and you can start to see what they do. And this little description down at the bottom really does help. So again, please put this in perspective. It does a really nice job of doing a final fine-tuning of the edge of your selection, the transition between what you're trying to select and what you're trying to end up with not selected. But at the same time, it does not change the fact, for example, if I just missed a whole bunch of a selection, this is not the command to fix that. That would be cancel out of here, go back and use some other method like the lasso tool with the shift key held down to add a little piece you've missed here and there, take away a little bit that you don't want, and then go back to refine edge and keep working from there. So it's not uncommon at all to toggle back and forth. Now I see that I've done a little too much there, so I'd cancel out of that. This is where, again, Quick Mask could also help me. So I'm going to keep going back and forth using my different methods of fine-tuning the selection and then using this to refine edge. Now, one of the areas where I really recommend this is versus feathering. Here's a problem people face quite often, is they want to make a feathered selection of, say, just around her head, so they take the elliptical marquee tool and they either have to guess how much feathering to put in up here, or they make a selection and then go to the select menu and choose modify feather, and we're still faced with a dialog box where there's really no help. You guess some number, you can even type in a number, but you really don't see anything. You have to click OK, and even then you still don't see the results until you actually do something with it, like duplicate it and hide the background. That gives you, okay, that was a little much. So if I step backwards to the point where I had my original selection, look at the difference when I hit Refine Edge. There it is on a white background, and now I can start playing with the feathering and get a really good preview of what I'm going to do. So given the choice, I would tend to go towards this style of feathering. It's going to give you a better preview. You can see better what's going to happen, and sometimes it's a matter of not just feathering, but also playing around with some other settings in addition to feathering. Maybe your selection wasn't big enough. So I highly recommend this as a great method when you're trying to end up with something that's feathered. Make a selection and use Refine Edge to determine how much feathering you want. So this is going to be a very key tool for us when we're trying to end up with those great selections, is use all other methods and then use the Refine Edge button to really make sure it looks good.